my husband and his sister were truly in love. To defy societal norms, they drank pesticide right before my eyes. Only after my husband's death did I discover he had left me with massive debts. Just as I worked myself to death repaying them, my husband miraculously revived, with his sister by his side. Covering her mouth with a coquettish laugh, the sister said, "James was right, you really are a fool." That's when I realized what they drank that day was actually cola. Their staged deaths were just a scheme to trick me into paying their debts while they lived happily ever after. In this second life, I beat them to it, spiking their cola with real pesticide. Elder sister, James and I are truly in love. You've monopolized him for so long, can't you give him back to me now? Lillian tightly grasped James's hand, her pale little face looking at me with fear. If James weren't my husband, I might actually applaud her spirit of charging forward for love. James furrowed his brows, shielding her behind him, his gaze toward me brimming with unconcealed disgust. Serena, with so many suitors chasing after you, what difference does one more or less make? But Lillian is different, she has only me. He sighed, looking at Lillian with eyes so tender they seemed about to melt. Besides, she's your only sister. Do you want her to be unhappy for the rest of her life? It doesn't matter if I sacrifice a little. Can't you be a bit less selfish? Hearing such shameless words from his mouth, I could barely control my urge to laugh. If you're cheating, just say so, why dress it up with such noble excuses? Seeing the mockery in my eyes, Lillian's eyes turned red. My mother looked at her with pity and turned to urge me to agree. Serena, just agree to your sister's request. You're the older sister, don't fight with your little sister over things. Ever since we were young, my mother has favored my sister. It's just because she knows how to act cute better than I do and is more likable. After my father passed away, our family lost its source of income. To ease my mother's burden, I voluntarily chose to drop out of school and went out to work to earn tuition for my sister. But now it seems that 10 years of support can't compare to a man. The sister I painstakingly raised has finally turned into an ungrateful wretch. Watching this sister who still attempts to emotionally blackmail me, my heart finally turned completely cold. I forced a faint smile and softly said, "Dream on." Lillian pouted and burst into tears right in front of me. She exchanged a glance with James, and each pulled out a small bottle from their pocket. I warned coldly, "Think carefully, what's more important, love or your lives?" Lillian glanced at me with pity in her eyes, yet her tone was condescending. "Sister, love is priceless, how could you ever understand what James and I share?" Before my mother could rush forward to stop them, the two of them raised their cups and downed the contents in one gulp. "Sister, are you satisfied now? With this pesticide, we're both doomed. Since we can't be together in this life, we might as well be lovebirds in death. At least our demise will clear your sight." She and James kissed passionately, then turned to flash me a triumphant smile. My mother's trembling hands picked up the bottle from the floor, her face ashen as she immediately burst into tears. "How could you drink pesticide? My poor daughters." They were putting on an act together, making it seem like I was the one who caused their deaths. This moral blackmail tactic wasn't the first time they'd used it on me. I lowered my head to hide the smile on my face. Since they treated my final warning as empty words, I might as well wish for their dreams to come true ahead of schedule. Little did the three of them suspect that the cola they thought they'd just drunk had long been mixed with real pesticide by me. In my previous life, Lillian also threatened to drink pesticide to force me to divorce James. Fearing she might actually do something reckless, I hesitated only briefly before nodding in agreement. Yet it was still too late, and I could only watch helplessly as the two of them drank the pesticide, intending to die together. Unable to face my mother, who cried all day, I spent what little savings I had left to treat their illness. But within days, they still passed away. From that day on, I became the villain. Insults and beatings became routine, and my mother even branded me a murderer, spreading rumors everywhere that I had driven my sister to her death. Everyone despised me, treating me as a harbinger of misfortune. Along with the news of James's death came the staggering debts he had left behind. As his legitimate wife, I was forced to inherit his debts, left with no choice but to work day and night to repay them. The relentless toil completely ruined my health, yet I couldn't bear to spend money on medical treatment. When I was lying on my deathbed, James and Lillian, who should have been long dead, miraculously came back to life. Lillian looked at my emaciated body with disdain, covering her mouth as she giggled softly. James was right, you really are a fool. But we must thank you, dear sister, for paying off all our debts. Only then did I realize that what they drank back then wasn't pesticide at all, but carefully prepared cola. They faked their deaths to escape, leaving me alone to repay their debts in despair, waiting to die. Fortunately, I was reborn. The first thing I did upon returning was to mix pesticide into their cola. Didn't they want to be a pair of doomed lovebirds? As her good elder sister, of course I had to fulfill their wish. Lillian covered her throat with a soft cough, looking at me with grievance. In the past, whenever she showed this pitiful expression, I would always relent and unconditionally comply with any of her demands. She's always known how to exploit my weaknesses. Unfortunately, I've long since seen through her true colors, and now the sight of her like this just makes me sick. When I still didn't move, Lillian stomped her foot in humiliated anger and rushed out the door. James immediately followed after her, completely disregarding me, his wife. My mother stormed up to me in fury and slapped me directly across the face. Are you satisfied with what you've done to your sister? I never should have given birth to a beast like you. I swallowed the metallic taste of blood in my mouth and slapped my mother right back. She froze instantly, dumbstruck as she held her cheek, never imagining I'd dare commit such an act of defiance. You little bastard dare to hit me? Get out and kneel outside the door. Let all the neighbors see how shameless you are. Not only did you try to kill your sister's husband, now you even dare to hit me. I glanced at her, amused. This house is entirely mine. What right do you have to make me leave? If anyone should leave, it's you. That night, Lillian came back furious, demanding to know if I had bullied her mother. I glanced at her and could only laugh at my own foolishness. I worked myself to the bone to support these two parasites, yet they could kill me over a man. Since that's the case, I no longer need to indulge them. Seeing my indifferent attitude, Lillian sobbed again and began playing the victim. Sister, I'm about to die. Do you still have to treat me like this at a time like this? I sneered coldly, what do I care if you die? You drank that pesticide yourself, nobody forced you. If you regretted it, you'd have run to the hospital by now. What's with this pathetic act in front of me? Lillian clearly hadn't expected me to expose her so ruthlessly, her face alternating between pale and flushed. All she knew was using death to threaten me. That trick might have worked in my past life, but this time around, my only regret is that I can't personally send her to her grave. Lillian was silent for a moment before suddenly looking up at me, a trace of malice flashing in her eyes. Sister, you'll regret this. I raised an eyebrow. What could a greenhouse-raised princess possibly do to make such bold claims about regret? I inexplicably felt like laughing. Lillian was beautiful, and with my help, she had caught the wave of internet popularity, becoming a minor influencer. Under my careful management, her follower count had now reached nearly 300,000. Late at night, Lillian secretly updated a short video behind my back. In the image, she and James were embracing intimately, gazing into each other's eyes as if no one else existed. Anyone who saw it would say they made a perfect match, a true pairing of talent and beauty. Beneath the photo was a caption, if lovers cannot be together, why not journey to the underworld as one? As soon as this video was posted, countless fans flooded her comment section, expressing concern for her well-being. Seizing the moment, Lillian shared images of the two empty pesticide bottles and immediately launched a live stream. The moment the stream began, 100,000 viewers rushed in. With red-rimmed eyes, Lillian bowed deeply to the camera, her voice hoarse. Thank you all for your concern. Sadly, my life is about to reach its end, but isn't dying with one's beloved also a form of happiness? Everyone, please don't cyberbully my sister. Even though she only wanted to make money off me, I know she's always cared about me deep down. She turned to look at James sitting beside her, affectionately nestling into his embrace like a frail white lotus seeking its only shelter. This instantly stirred waves of sympathy among all the netizens. The comment section exploded immediately. WTF is wrong with that damn sister? How could she drive our Lillian to drink poison? That sister is practically a murderer. She just can't stand our Lillian finding true love, she must be mentally twisted. The netizens' disgusting slander came one after another, with a hint of smugness flashing in Lillian's eyes. I never expected she could be so shameless, using the gifts I gave her against me. Occasionally, a few netizens spoke up for me, but the moment they questioned why James, who wasn't my husband, was so intimate with her, they were immediately swarmed by a horde of brainless fans. James tightly held Lillian's hand as they loudly proclaimed their invincible true love on the live stream. The comment section was flooded with cheers from their supporters. Rubbing my throbbing temples, I hit the report button without hesitation. Since when did scumbags and mistresses dare flaunt themselves so brazenly? Aren't they just digging their own graves? Soon, Lillian's livestream was banned. Even the flood of gifts her loyal fans had just sent was forcibly refunded by the platform. After all their hard work that night, they didn't earn a single penny. I closed my laptop and was about to rest when my bedroom door was suddenly kicked open. Serena! Open the damn door. Stop hiding like a coward in there. Was it you who reported it just now? Lillian's crying. Get over here and apologize to her right now. James's furious voice reached me through the door, coming to seek justice for his little lover, was he? I pulled the door open and met his eyes directly. He frowned, grabbed my hand and tried to pull me out the door, but I shook him off violently. My voice turned icy. Don't forget, you're still my husband now, this counts as infidelity. Who was it that pulled you out of the mud back then? And this is how you repay me? When I first met James, street thugs had broken both his legs. He was curled up alone on a hospital chair with no money for treatment. It was me who scraped together the funds to save his life. Back then, Lillian mocked me for being foolish enough to save a stranger. Looking at things now, she was absolutely right. James paused for a moment, then continued with furious embarrassment. So what? Even if you saved my life, I've always loved Lillian. Perhaps due to the intense emotions, his face turned pale as he coughed uncomfortably, covering his mouth. I looked down at him coldly. You should go to the hospital. But James refused to listen, instinctively retorting, what do you know? Even if I die with Lillian, I'd be willing. I nodded, glancing at Lillian standing triumphantly by the doorway in the distance, and smiled with relief. I had given them chances. Since they refused to understand human decency, death was the only option left. Ever since childhood, Lillian had been obsessed with taking what was mine. Whether it was our mother's love or my husband's affection, if she saw it, she had to steal it. Watching the things I cherished slip away one by one gave her a twisted sense of fulfillment. I didn't understand why the sister I had worked so hard to raise had turned into this kind of monster. Early the next morning, as soon as I got up, I saw my mother sitting in the living room with a dark expression. When I came out, she spoke sarcastically, "What took you so long, pig? Are you trying to starve us to death?" My mother is retired at home, Lillian is still in school, and James quit his job early under the pretext of accompanying Lillian. In this entire household, I'm the only one working, and I'm also responsible for their 3 meals a day. I took a deep breath and was just about to speak when James' panicked voice came from inside. Mom. Come quick. Lillian seems to be having an attack. My mother staggered and rushed into her bedroom. Lillian lay on the bed with a pale face, clutching her stomach as she coughed uncontrollably. When she saw me follow inside, a mocking smile appeared on her face. Big sister, are you satisfied seeing me in such a wretched state? James held her in his arms with tears streaming down his face, their fingers tightly interlocked. But I knew, everything before my eyes was all an act they were putting on for my benefit. Even if Lillian had already drunk the pesticide, she was only in the early to mid stages right now. There was no way she could possibly look this pitiful. I sighed and picked up the lipstick from her desk, then slammed it violently onto the floor. Lillian widened her eyes and exclaimed, "Serena! How dare you throw my things?" I looked at her innocently. "Since you're going to die anyway, I'm just doing you a favor by sending these down to keep you company in advance." Lillian trembled as she pointed at me, too furious to speak for a long moment. Her beloved cosmetics and designer bags, which nearly filled half her room, were her most prized possessions. In her nearly shattered gaze, I smashed and tore them to pieces one by one on the ground. Lillian finally couldn't hold on any longer and rushed over with a wail, clutching her bag to her chest. "Sis. I'm fine. I'm fine. Stop smashing them." James and my mother exchanged glances, their faces slightly awkward. After all, the elaborate drama they had carefully set up for me had been exposed so easily. I looked at the two of them with some amusement. It seems I'm still a miracle doctor, curing my sister so easily. They averted their gaze, not daring to meet my eyes. Lillian stared at me fiercely. "Serena. You're so selfish. No wonder James doesn't like you, you're so domineering. Why do you insist on holding on to him and not letting go?" I slightly raised an eyebrow and crouched down to look at her. "I agree to a divorce." Lillian looked up at me in disbelief. I repeated it once more by her ear, and she excitedly shot James a meaningful glance. I saw James hesitate. After all, if we really divorced, he wouldn't be able to pin his debts on me anymore. I intensified my provocation towards Lillian, who said with reddened eyes, "Sis, you won't just abandon me, right?" I smiled and said, "Of course not." Lillian immediately stood up, linked her arm with mine, and eagerly pulled me outside to proceed with the divorce. Seeing James still hesitating, she cooed, "James, even though you're divorcing my sister, my problems are still her problems. Don't worry." With Lillian's assurance, James was completely at ease. The moment the divorce certificate was in hand, Lillian couldn't wait to marry James. She smiled gratefully at me. "Sis, thank you for giving James to me. And I thank you for inheriting James's sky-high debts in my place." After the wedding, the couple openly flaunted their love on live streaming platforms. Their great love, which defied worldly conventions, was hailed by some minors as a rebellion against feudal traditions. With their outstanding looks, their fame grew day by day, and their earnings multiplied. Netizens in the live stream expressed concern about their health, suggesting they get medical checkups, but Lillian couldn't care less. Love can conquer everything. A mere pesticide is hardly worth mentioning. In front of countless livestream viewers, they even swore on the spot they would never go to the hospital. I sat quietly by, watching them dig their own graves. During this period, both of their health gradually deteriorated, but their eyes were too dazzled by immense wealth to take any notice. They dismissed it as just a common cold and casually took some medicine to brush it off. After Lillian and James got their marriage certificate, they completely let themselves go, flaunting their love in front of me every few days. I simply pretended not to see it. Not getting the reaction she wanted, Lillian snorted coldly and warned me, "Sister, don't even think about snatching James back." I raised my head and glanced at her. Such trashy goods, only a fool like her would ever want them. Not long ago, I secretly took James's ID card and took out another large loan in his name, a way to compensate for all those wasted years. Now James spends every day fooling around with Lillian, probably completely unaware that his debts have multiplied. By the way, Lillian's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled coyly. "James and I are getting married in 3 days. You'll come, won't you, sister?" "I'll definitely go. I just wonder if the two of them will still be holding on by then." At the wedding banquet, Lillian invited a bunch of her dubious friends and played the big shot by refusing to accept any monetary gifts. This slightly annoyed James, who had originally planned to use the gift money to plug financial holes, but he swallowed his displeasure. When they first met, James' parents had both remarried, and neither was willing to spend a dime on him. I advised James to cut ties with them to avoid encouraging their parasitic mentality, and James obediently followed my advice. But now his parents were sitting together in their seats, casting displeased looks at me. It turned out that James had long reconciled with them behind my back. As for me, I ended up displeasing both sides. I lowered my gaze and took a sip of water. He had brought this upon himself, there was no need for me to waste emotions on someone unworthy. Lillian walked gracefully onto the stage in her high-end wedding dress, but no matter how thick her makeup was, it couldn't conceal the lifelessness on her face. I watched as she and James exchanged rings, kissed passionately, then both turned their gazes toward me. "Sister, thanks to you giving up James for me. You'll bless our everlasting love, won't you?" She looked at me with innocent, watery eyes. "After all, ours is the true love, isn't it?" Countless spotlights shone upon me as guests whispered behind my back. Anyone could see Lillian was deliberately humiliating me, yet not a single soul stepped forward to speak for me. I smoothed my hair and gazed at this foolish sister of mine. Little did she know I'd specially prepared a wedding gift for her today, one memorable enough to last her a lifetime. Before she could revel in her triumph for long, a group of thugs with menacing scowls burst in. "That bastard James has money to get married but can't pay his debts? Pay up what you owe." The moment he saw them, James's cheerful expression instantly drained from his face. He stumbled backward in panic, but it was too late, the leader of the group had already spotted him. "James, if you don't pay up today, my crew and I will camp right here. Let's see how far you get with this damn wedding." My efforts in leaking the information to them in advance weren't in vain, they've indeed come to collect their debts. It's just a shame that the two of them have always been extravagant with money, and now they don't have a penny to their names. Paying back the debt is simply out of the question. As the murmurs of the surrounding guests grew louder, Lillian clenched her teeth and looked at me pitifully. Shamelessly, she said, "You should all go ask my sister for the money, she's got plenty." I quickly waved my hands. "Sorry, but I'm the ex-wife. The money he owes has absolutely nothing to do with me." Lillian widened her eyes, staring at me in disbelief. I simply shrugged at her. She had pulled last-minute reversals often enough herself. Besides, I wasn't about to play the fool a second time. The debt collectors lost their patience. At their leader's command, his underlings began smashing tables. The wedding hall erupted in screams, and Lillian, consumed with rage, spat out a mouthful of blood. Staring at the pool of crimson on the floor, she froze instantly before collapsing completely unconscious, clutching her stomach as my mother's scream pierced the air. "It's hopeless. Her organs have already failed. Even if we tried to resuscitate her, she wouldn't survive." The moment Lillian opened her eyes, the doctor pronounced her death sentence. The doctor sighed regretfully. "Why on earth would you drink pesticide? If you'd come just a few days earlier, there might still have been hope." Before he could finish speaking, Lillian screamed and interrupted, "Bullshit. What pesticide? I didn't drink any of that, it was clearly cola." Her eyes were bloodshot, and overwhelmed by intense emotions, she couldn't help but turn sideways and vomit another mouthful of blood. It was slightly blackened, reeking of a foul stench. I covered my nose and took a step back. James, his hands trembling, stopped the doctor, who was shaking his head and preparing to leave. "I think I drank it too." The doctor frowned and took him for tests as well. When the results came out, he was given the same death sentence. Watching the two of them lying devastated on their respective hospital beds, I covered my mouth and laughed. "Little sister, wasn't it insecticide you both drank back then? You've always wanted to be a pair of doomed lovebirds. Shouldn't you be happy now that you're about to die?" My words seemed to ignite something. James struggled to get off the bed and grabbed Lillian by the throat, shouting, "You bitch! Did you actually poison me?" Lillian struggled desperately, her face streaked with terrified tears. "No way. I clearly switched it with cola. I don't know how this could happen." James was always a selfish scoundrel. Now that his life was in danger, he would only blame everyone else for his mistakes, even the woman he once loved. My mother screamed and rushed forward, shoving James away. "She's your wife. How could you abuse her?" James was already physically weak, and now with this push, he fell to the ground in a pitiful heap. Clutching his head in pain, he still glared fiercely at Lillian. His parents exchanged a glance before angrily grappling with my mother. "Who gave you the right to hit our son? Who do you think you are?" My mother was beaten without any ability to fight back. She looked at Lillian pleadingly, but Lillian stumbled out of bed without even glancing her way. "Wrong, wrong, this must be wrong." Lillian clutched at my pants in despair, her face streaked with tears. "Sister, this is all just a nightmare, isn't it?" I put away the phone I'd been recording with and arched an eyebrow at her. "Lillian, this is all very real. But don't worry, you're about to die anyway." I jerked my chin toward James on the floor. "You've still got your true love. Didn't she herself claim true love could conquer all? Why is she crying with regret now?" After the hospital incident, Lillian and James' relationship hit rock bottom. The couple completely tore off their masks, and both sets of parents came to blows. I specifically recorded their true colors at the hospital and uploaded it to my account immediately. When they were faking illness before, they were considered the epitome of a loving couple. They even went viral online with their bizarre remarks. Now that the truth has been exposed to everyone, when they are truly facing death, their first instinct is to blame each other. Netizens realized they had been played by the two of them, leading to a massive wave of fans turning against them. Brands also took a firm stance, demanding contract termination and compensation for breach. Unfortunately, Lillian and James were too preoccupied with their own troubles to care about this mess. Although their relationship had fallen apart, they still managed to obtain their marriage certificate. But now, that certificate seems more like a death warrant. Watching James undergo a complete personality change, with all his previous gentleness gone, Lillian came to me in tears begging for help. But alas, there was nothing I could do. First she was the one who insisted on marriage, now she's crying and making a scene about divorce. Who has the patience to indulge her childish games? Their health deteriorated rapidly, hair falling out in clumps, plagued by insomnia, until they became little more than walking skeletons. Living in constant terror, they spent each day accusing one another. Not a trace remained of that composed, love-willing-to-die persona they'd shown during their live streams. In a desperate bid to prolong their lives, they began swallowing pills by the handful, too little, too late. After the two of them couldn't hold back and had a huge fight, James finally couldn't resist coming to me. Only this time, the light in his eyes was completely gone. "Serena, I know I was wrong. Now that I'm dying, I finally understand my own feelings." He choked back a sob and tried to grab my hand, but I shook it off in disgust. He looked at me with hurt in his eyes. "Serena, please, give me one more chance. Please save me. Sell this house to pay for my treatment. I promise, once I recover, I'll treat you right." It all comes down to coaxing me into selling the house to pay for his treatment. How shameless can he be to say such things? My past soft-heartedness only earned me his repeated betrayals. This time I have no intention of helping him again. I looked helplessly behind him. "If I sell the house to give you money, what about Lillian?" James blurted out excitedly, "She doesn't matter." What a way to say she doesn't matter. Watching Lillian's venomous glare from the corner, I couldn't help but laugh. "Forget it, you can just rely on true love to overcome everything." Both sets of parents spent a fortune to obtain a miraculous pill from a wandering charlatan, claiming it could cure all diseases with just one dose. The only catch, there was just this single pill in the entire world. I didn't believe in the pill's power. But James and Lillian clung to it as their last hope. Lillian knelt before James, clutching his legs as she wailed hysterically. "James, don't you love me more than anything in this life? Then give this pill to me. I'm sicker than you. Once I recover, I swear I'll find you another cure." James kicked her away, snarling, "If it weren't for your damn idea of drinking pesticide, I wouldn't have ended up like this. This antidote is mine alone. Don't even think about it." As the two were about to come to blows again, their parents grew even more hostile. I offered them a brilliant solution. Since negotiations were going nowhere, they should draw lots. Whoever drew the bigger one would get the antidote, while the smaller one would be left to die, leaving their fate to the heavens. With neither willing to back down, they had no choice but to accept my proposal. I deliberately prepared 2 identical paper slips and tossed them onto the table. Lillian grabbed one first, while James cursed under his breath and reluctantly took the other. However, when James unfolded the crumpled paper, a look of wild delight appeared on his face. He spread out the paper, revealing a large number 6 visible to everyone. But before he could speak, the silent Lillian swiftly snatched the box containing the antidote from the table. Before anyone could react, she immediately pulled out the antidote inside and swallowed it. James' smile froze on his face. After a long pause, he let out a despairing roar and pinned Lillian to the ground, beating her violently. Lillian shielded her head, but a twisted smile spread across her face. "Didn't you say you loved Serena? Then go to hell alone with your love." My mother burst into laughter beside me, completely ignoring the murderous glares from James's parents. Watching this farce unfold before me, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. They kept preaching that true love conquers all, yet here they are, abandoning their so-called true love to save their own skins? When it comes down to it, both of them are equally hypocritical. In a way, they truly deserve each other. Watching Lillian nearly beaten to death, I still kindly called the police. After all, the show wasn't over yet. I didn't want her to die so easily. Though Lillian had been brutally beaten, it seemed that pill might have actually worked. Her complexion grew rosier by the day, and even her health improved significantly. In stark contrast was James. After his only life-saving medicine was stolen by Lillian, his strained nerves finally snapped, and his condition deteriorated rapidly, hanging on by a thread. Lillian hypocritically visited him a few times but was always cursed away. Seeing that he was on his last legs, his parents came knocking again, only to make an utterly outrageous demand. They want to leave James with an heir. After all, the money for the medicine was split equally between the 2 families. Since Lillian snatched the medicine, it's only fair that she bears them a child. With a grandson, their son wouldn't have died in vain. Otherwise, they'd have to repay the money. Listening to their clattering calculations, I couldn't help but pity James. Even as he lay dying, his parents didn't leave him a shred of freedom. My mother spent every last penny of her retirement savings on Lillian, leaving her without a single cent to spare. Lillian had no choice but to obediently show up, no matter how reluctant she was. Yet just one night after sleeping with James, he vomited blood and collapsed. His parents tearfully rushed him to the hospital, but before they even reached it, he had completely stopped breathing. Just like that, James was dead. Lillian sighed in relief. That very night, she went live again, hoping to exploit sympathy for views as she had before. But I had already released the video of her stealing the antidote that rightfully belonged to James. After all her talk of dying together, now she was terrified of death. The halo effect around her shattered, and in an instant, she became universally despised. The backlash was so intense that she was even reported and forced to delete her account. Lillian was so furious that she smashed her phone. I stood by the doorway, watching her tantrum. Insecticide has always been incurable. I don't believe there's any true antidote in this world. After James' death, as his legal wife, Lillian was forced to inherit all his debts. But she couldn't come up with a single penny. Shamelessly, Lillian still wanted the dowry from the wedding back then, only to be blocked outright by her so-called friends, leaving her stomping around the house in fury. Debt collectors came knocking every day. She had planned to hole up in my place and stay hidden. But I had already sold the house behind her back. When the new owner arrived, she and my mother were forced out onto the street. Lillian finally dropped the act and cursed me in front of everyone, calling me heartless. Too bad for her, everyone present could see right through her. They had long heard about Lillian, so they just treated it as a joke. No one stood by her side. The debt collectors began using violence, blocking her on the road every day, even threatening to sell her overseas. Lillian lived in constant fear, her mind dazed and confused. With no other options left, she secretly took the last bit of my mother's money and fled under the cover of night. When my mother realized what had happened, she collapsed to the floor in shock. Lillian had planned to sneak abroad to escape her debts, but the moment she arrived at the airport, she began convulsing and fainted on the spot. Fortunately, a kind-hearted person sent her to the hospital. When I arrived, her face was deathly pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She lay on the bed, barely clinging to life. By the looks of it, she didn't have much time left. How is this possible? I took the medicine, how could it not work? She stared at me in horror, her voice thick with resentment. I pulled out my phone and showed it to her, sighing. That was never any antidote. The scammer who sold you the medicine was arrested for fraud yesterday. Those were just mud pills he sold you. Didn't you even notice? When I said this, Lillian stared at me blankly, her eyes hollow and her lips trembling slightly, but not a single word came out. She had been so happy for so long, even going as far as to kill her own beloved, yet in the end, her illness was never cured at all. Lillian covered her face and finally broke into sobs. Even if she regretted it now, it was already too late. They drank the pesticide themselves, I never forced them. I sighed and walked out of the ward without looking back, ignoring her desperate calls behind me. A few days later, my friend informed me of Lillian's death. My mother wept as she went to collect the body, only to be blocked at the door by debt collectors. Now that Lillian was dead, her beloved mother had no choice but to inherit her precious daughter's astronomical debts. My mother, at 65 this year, was just the right age to start repaying them. I looked out the window, the warm sunlight spilling over me. I stretched lazily and couldn't help but let my eyes crinkle with amusement. Divine justice had finally come full circle, what goes around comes around.